Who's that Pokemon?
Who's that Pokemon?
Microgoose.
And we are back. And we are going into our deep dive now. So, since this show began, the world has been crippled by an ongoing pandemic. Everyone has had to make sacrifices, and social distancing has become the standard. As the 15-day quarantine turned into a year-long plus one, questions on how to get back to normal, or at least the new normal, remain. While entertainers are definitely not on the front lines of the pandemic, they are kind of like the orchestra in the Titanic, soothing us slowly as the pillars of democracy and faith in science slowly crumbles around us. So what does entertainment look like in the pandemic? How has the industry adjusted? What has been successful? What has failed? We're getting into all of that tonight in entertainment in the world of COVID. All right. Let's start at the beginning. Back in March, Sonic the Hedgehog had just come out. Cyberpunk 2077 and Wonder Woman were just a few months from release. Black Widow was prepping for her first solo debut with the help of Taskmaster and Sheriff Jim Hopper. And Onward was set to make kids smile across the globe. The Batman and Jurassic Park were set to start filming. And then the COVID happened. Kev, what's going on with these properties now?
Yeah, well, Onward was released to Disney Plus. The film received generously positive reviews from critics and grossed $141 million worldwide. The films were a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, which led to widespread closures of movie theaters, like several other films released in earlier months of 2020. It was made available digitally several weeks after its theatrical opening. Cyberpunk 2020 has received multiple delays. We just talked about the new Wonder Woman movie coming out that's going to be simultaneously streamed to HBO Max. Black Widow is being delayed and is also in limbo whether or not they're going to release that straight to Disney Plus. The Batman has had COVID delays, plus actors, especially the Batman, getting COVID, causing major delays. Current filming for Jurassic World just wrapped up, but was burdened by a multitude of delays from the crew getting sick. Reality is that these properties and many more will continue to see delays, i.e. Stranger Things and The Witcher, etc. These would have been out by now or within the coming months, but we are far from that, and we don't know how much farther we have to go. Bron? What are your thoughts?
I think that we'll just both anticipate further delays and also different ways that we're going to be expected to see our content, which kind of might inform how that content is created, and especially these streaming services. Not seeing these huge blockbuster films of these massive crews and big orchestrated events. That's going to be dying down, and we're going to see different forms, smaller productions, maybe more indie things are going to be at the forefront, because you're not going to see a company investing like so much money into a film if they're not going to see the return. And I don't expect that we'll see that same type of return that we do at the box office.
So I mean, just looking at Onward, I mean, we talk about it grossing 141 million, which sounds like a lot, but when you look at stuff like Incredibles 2, it makes 1.2 billion. So, that's a whole 3 digits higher than that, or, 2 digits higher than that. But still, the point is that it's exponentially higher, and Onward was going to be one of those big Disney staples. I mean, you have Tom Holland and Chris Pratt, and kids don't know how shitty Chris Pratt is. So
another topic.
Another topic. But that would have sold. That would have definitely been something that the stressed out mom takes her kids to let them relax, and probably would have made a ton more money than it did. But it went straight to on demand.
So. Yeah, and just to put it into perspective, that 141 million was how much they made, right? So imagine their budget was probably 175 to 200 million. So
right.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the budget for Incredibles 2, just to give a comparison, was 200 million. So,
Right.
Yeah.
It probably did not make its money back.
No.
And it's going to be probably chalked up as a loss.
Yeah.
And just because the pandemic happened, I mean, there's really, I watched Onward. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. There's no way this movie wouldn't have been successful if it hadn't been for the pandemic.
Yeah.
And then, a lot of the movie properties, Wonder Woman 84, Black Widow, all of them have seen delays. We've seen Wonder Woman now. We've got the release date for it. Black Widow is still in limbo. I don't think that Marvel's going to take the same risk that DC's going to take with that. But it's just been kind of a roller coaster with a lot of these properties, and as far as where they've been. But some properties have thrived during the pandemic, though. Animal Crossing, Among Us, Fall Guys, the rise of indie games in general, as we talked about earlier. And certain properties like Tiger King, The Mandalorian, and Lovecraft Country have thrived. Why do you think this is, Bronwyn?
So, looking at something like The Mandalorian or Tiger King or things like that, one was created for Disney Plus and one was created for Netflix. Those things are designed to stream, so they're not expecting this big theatrical release, and they're meant to be bingeable. They're meant for you to be at home on your couch watching and diving into. So I think that really helped with the success of those. They were probably even more successful because people had more time to sit at home and watch them. Same with games. People have the chance to play these games that they wouldn't otherwise because they're trying to entertain themselves in a different way. I know we all still live really busy lives during the pandemic, so it's not to say that you're not doing anything, but you're spending more time at home, and the time that is your free time, you're trying to escape a bit. So I think these games help with that, and I think that's one reason why they've been really successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Kev, any thoughts on things that have thrived during the pandemic?
No, I think we touched on this earlier too. I think a lot more indie games have been coming to the forefront because there's just been so much need for more content on any sort of platform, whether it's a game, a television show, or a movie. So I just think that's going to sort of, that's opening up the market for others to sort of come in, because now we're consumers by nature. So it's like, whether it's TikTok, whether it's on your phone, whether it's on your laptop, your TV, whatever, you're just trying to consume any sort of content you can get. And I think content creators are going to capitalize on that.
Yeah. When you look at Among Us and Fall Guys in particular, Among Us, like it's a I think 2-year-old to 7-year-old game. I can't remember how old this game is. Yeah. This game is old.
It's like 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's it's a gimmicky game. Well, I mean, to some extent, but it's still a party game. But the reason it got so much of a spotlight was because there was people that are like, okay, I have time to sit down and play one of these games back to back and just go at it for hours with my friends. Yeah. And the setting for the pandemic really bode well for that. Same with Fall Guys in a different way, but it was because of the replayability of it. Oh, I can just replay this over and over again, and I got to get that crown kind of thing. And it was just that the same reason why casual games on people's phones really work really well is because they're easy to play, they're mindless. You can pick up the controller and you know what you're doing. So for two different reasons, both of those games I think were incredibly successful, and I think that's given a rise to the indie gamer in the pandemic, which has been a really cool thing to watch.
Right.
And I think there's aspects of them too, because people are craving that community space to be with, because you can't be around people. So that's why something like Among Us or Fall Guys, where you can get together with your friends. Animal Crossing, where people are like having weddings and funerals
and that's a whole nother one, right? Like people actually doing live experiential things in these games. You know, like Animal Crossing, I think is a perfect example of that. People doing their graduations and funerals and stuff like that. Like that was another thing that, like, Animal Crossing would have been successful on its own without the pandemic, but with the pandemic, it just made all more opportunities for it. But it seems that overall games seem to be thriving, and the movie industry / live entertainment seem to be suffering the most. The death of movie theaters like Regal and AMC seem almost imminent. Is there anything that can be done to save them? And does their death mean that they're going to be gone forever?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think, well, forever seems a little drastic, but I don't know. Blockbuster's gone, and so is a sort of a plethora of other things that we thought would be everlasting. Somehow, Redbox is still here, so who knows? I'm just thinking they're gonna have to be smart and convert to something else, like drive-ins. Maybe convert a lot of those massive parking lots and those theaters into sort of 5 to 10, if they can. I'm not a city planner or civil engineer, so I don't know, but to like massive drive-in movie lots, or like I mentioned before, AMC and Regal. Let's get on let's figure out how to do some sort of streaming platform that instead of Blockbusters only, you can only see it in person in the theater. You can only see it via our streaming platforms when the movie's released. And I just think this sort of post-COVID renaissance is going to be more independently produced IPs, whether it's games or TV shows or movies. I think a lot of people are just going to say, hey, you know what, there's opportunity for me to get my content and my ideas and my sort of the things that I want to make, and I can find some way to sort of finance it myself or independently through different donors or investors, and then push it out on YouTube or Netflix or whatever. And I think that's going to start happening a lot more too. Brian, do you think theaters are dead forever too? Or are you more optimistic than I am?
So I'm hoping they're not dead, especially because I also really enjoy live theater and opera and music events. So I'm hoping they're not completely dead. I think some things that the movie theater industry can do and has been doing to help survive is offering like private rentals for these theater spaces, which I think is pretty cool, because then you could go with a group that you get together and be spread out amongst people who are your friends, and I think that's a cool idea. I think that in the chat earlier, someone was saying it's like $100 to rent a whole entire movie theater. So if you kind of divide the price of tickets, you can make that work depending on who goes with you. I like the idea of drive-ins, because how fun and how cute is that to be able to just like curl up in the bathroom and watching a movie and drinking some hot toddies out of the thermos. Like, that sounds like fun. But I don't think that they can monetize in the same way you would with the theater, where there are like maybe 10 or more screening rooms within. You don't have the same type of space to be able to do that outside. Maybe you can have
and you have a lot less security of like people trying to scalp the movie and stuff like that.
That's true.
And people trying to record it. Like, I mean, you could even not even pay for a ticket and just be like up on a hill. Like, this is what I always think of. Like, you're up on a hill, like in like an Iron Giant or something, and you're just like filming from a corner, and like, I don't know how you get the audio, but you figure that out later, I guess.
But they were already struggling. That's the funny, like movie theaters were already kind of struggling before the pandemic. So if anything, this was like slowly escalating, or this was slowly happening, and then COVID just escalated this to where it seemed like it was going to be inevitably.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I think that the movie theaters in Austin that were the most successful were the ones that delivered an experience, delivered food, or had like special screenings with either actors. Like, I remember they did for like Birds of Prey, they had like the Austin roller derby team come in because there's a roller derby scene in Birds of Prey, and doing like fun stuff like that is something that I think people will pay money for in the modern era. And I think that you talked about the post-COVID renaissance, and just to kind of explain what I think you're talking about, after the plague came the Renaissance, and after there's a time period where we're all kind of built up inside, and we've kind of we've learned a lot of stuff about each other, but also in the modern era, there's just the fact that like we will be able to produce a lot more stuff. Like we saw as soon as the Pfizer vaccine came out, and the Moderna news came out, boom, Disney's announcing, hey, we got Deadpool 3 on the way. Hey, Black Panther 2 is going to begin filming in Atlanta. We're propping out this property. We're doing this with that. We're making decisions on what we're doing with Wonder Woman. Like, because we know how long this is going to play out. And I think that once that case is kind of like that backlog of all the stuff that's ready to go, or has begun filming, or just waiting for theaters to be able to fill empty, is going to all come at once, and we're going to have this big like overwhelming flood of content. But we're also going to just want to go outside and go to the park and go to like ride a roller coaster or something else, like do other things that we haven't done in COVID. So I don't know. I don't know how that whole period is going to be like, or if there is going to be a post-Renaissance or a post-COVID Renaissance kind of thing, and maybe just a pipe dream. But with that said, in that kind of like post-COVID Renaissance era, I can see theaters coming back that have never existed before. Maybe AMC does die, but then there's, a theater kind of like Alamo Drafthouse, or Alamo Drafthouse steps in AMC's place. And that becomes what theaters are, more experiential things,
I would like that.
I think that's a positive.
I just had this vision for like Hans Zimmer going on a concert tour, playing like Tenet on City to City. Just maybe that's how they go. They, instead of rolling it out nationwide to every theater, they just go city to city, and then they do
and
like
it wouldn't hurt to add a roller derby crew in there,
right?
Just for,
Every movie should have that.
Every movie should have a roller derby crew. People are also producing more of their own content these days. Smile at the camera. And companies that profit off of content creation are doing just that too. They're changing their ways as well. What's changed recently for content creators, and are those changes welcomed?
I will take this one. I don't think that the change is welcome for the creators. Not so much, because a lot of these changes that are happening are more in favor of the platforms, such as YouTube's changed, their terms of services have changed, and it makes it so they can monetize off of your content when you can't. So not so welcome for the content creators themselves. Also, this new Twitch pay-to-play model is completely in favor of Twitch and the companies involved in that.
It's certainly going to create more content creators, that's for sure.
Right. Yeah.
But it's also going to give. Yeah. Go ahead.
I don't know. I just feel like I'm seeing more changes in terms of the platforms themselves kind of writing their services or changing their platforms in a way that is benefiting them more than people like us.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the YouTube service change, basically they've changed it so that YouTube makes money off of any content that's there. Any and all content. And the Twitch new pay to play model, obviously it's going to get them more content creators. It's going to get them more people that they can play ads on their channel without them having to actually put in the work to do it. And that means that they just want to make ads more immediately off of, the 3 or 4 friends of that first time streamer that's just following them to watch them, just to get them started and get them to affiliate level and get them to where, it is cheapening the experience. But I feel like it's the capitalist machine at work, trying to figure out how they can grind out the most money that they can. What about you, Kev?
Oh no, and what's even terrible, what we sort of like how they even started before they rolled this out, was they relegated certain channels on YouTube that don't meet the current partner agreements. I had a channel that happened to. So if you were being able to be monetized back then, now you could be relegated to just the normal YouTube account, and they'll still run ads on your channel, and now you won't get paid for it. So it's pretty shitty. Like let's be real. I don't think it's pretty slimy and gross. It's just, now I think they just feel like, and maybe they're just too big to fail, where they're going to have content creators regardless. And, if you want your stuff here on YouTube and chase that YouTube dream, go for it. But we're going to make money off of you in the meantime. But also too, let's not, I mean, there's most YouTubers make money also more so than just YouTube videos, right? They have like merch and other stuff too. So, but I just don't like how they set this all up with, we're going to change our entire agreement of what it means to be a partner. And then if you don't meet you're not being grandfathered in if you had already met the previous ones. And then now we're going to monetize your channel. Like, that's pretty slimy.
Yeah, no, I agree. Especially if you can if they can still run ads on your channel, even if
Right.
you've gotten to a point where you're not making money off of it, they're still going to make their dollar.
Yep.
And I think that that's just really slimy.
Yeah.
Shout out to our YouTube feed, which is live now. But anyways, it's been pretty rough for content creators. But despite these barriers, content creation is still on the rise.
Yeah.
People have flocked to content creation and generated content to fill the void between the lack of new content. And the content generated is more than just good memes. What else has this content creation rise given us?
Yeah, so TikTok is booming. That is where everyone is going. If you want to be an influencer or famous on the internet, there's still time for you in the TikTok world. Viral TikTok stars are trending upward. We actually have one here on the Geeklife crew. I'm looking at you, Jake. So it's still a platform that still that hasn't been sort of oversaturated like the likes of Instagram or YouTube. Other content channels like Twitch, AOC streaming among us to get out the vote. Everyone's a Twitch streamer now, not just gamers. You know, you're seeing cooking shows or just run-of-the-mill podcasts, and you know, talk shows, whatever. Twitch is doing that for the content creators who want to get those content out and want to get that content out there. And then Netflix. A lot of people are releasing, independent filmmakers are releasing things on Netflix. It's a lot easier to get your stuff on Netflix than I think people give credit for. And that's Netflix's motto has always kind of been, you know, more content. We want to have more content than we know what to do with. That's why they came out with a quote saying their only competition has been sleep, which is apparently from data they analyzed pretty accurate. That's another story. Dodd, any new content creators or platforms you're currently hip to?
What's funny for me is like before we started streaming and stuff, I was into a bunch of different content creators, and now that I've started following them for a long time, I've started to see like their flaws. And there's some that I've unfollowed, and there's some that I'm proud that I've unfollowed. I'm not gonna name them on here because there's no need to like name drop and be like this person can do that kind of thing. But there are some streamers out there that I'm like, yeah, their stuff's crap. But you know, I any new ones in particular, Dogface I think is made this year for sure. It's just TikTok, you know.
CEO vibes.
He's brought back Cranberry Juice and Fleetwood Mac in one TikTok video. You know, I think that's really interesting, and I think it's been cool to see his rise and his whole kind of like, you know, he's been just a message of kind of like peace in a kind of trying time. So I think that's been interesting. You know, on the real, you know, with a lot of stuff that's been happening with protests and stuff going on within Austin, there's been a lot of people that have been covering those and watching their content as well. Has been really interesting during this time, especially because, you know, I have a immunocompromised partner. I can't go out, and I have to be cautious everywhere I do go out. But and being able to see what's happening in my own city has been really important. So I think that there has been, you know, with all things with the internet, I think that there is good and bad, and I think that I wouldn't say a net good, but there is good, you know? So with all this pandemic craziness right at the end of the tunnel, both Pfizer and Moderna have come out with a vaccine that 9 out of 10 Pokemon professors deem is super effective. And with that, we have heard a slew of new announcements in the movie department. With the news of the new vaccine on the way, how does this change things for the entertainment and the world of COVID, Braun?
I think that it will change things, not right away, but maybe in like a year. I don't know. I don't want to give it any down the road, because I know the first people to get these vaccines are going to be the first responders, the healthcare workers. I don't think that it's going to be publicly available for a little bit. And once it is, there's always a period of, even when things are fine, people are scared still, and they're not going to want to take any unnecessary risks. At least I'm hoping people will have that mentality. So yeah, well, change is happening, and that's really exciting. This is the first step, and it's a really important one. And even though it might not affect us right away, it is the direction that we want to go towards normalcy, towards being able to experience these events together and be the entertainment industry to thrive, the music industry to thrive, and us to enjoy. Yeah.
I'm still rooting for a post-COVID renaissance where we eat the rich and deport the racists. But fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Well, that will wrap it up for our deep dive. Entertainment in the world of COVID. But we have got a great top Zen for you guys tonight. Back in July of this year, Ubisoft's veteran chief creative officer, Serge Haskiot, I think I butchered his name, but it's okay. I don't care that much. He's kind of an asshole. And his